Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on what is really sort of a wintry day, at least here in most of the United States. I know it's about 22 degrees here in Texas, and they're having snowstorms up north, so everybody's dressing a little warmer today, trying to stay warm. Before we jump right into the talks with my esteemed friends and panelists, again, a couple things of note that we wanted to share. One, on a little bit of a sad note, our industry lost one of its finest in John Holsinger just recently in the last couple of days. John was the director of the IHRSA Asia Pacific region. Many of you would know John. He has been in the industry and worked with IHRSA for over 15 years and really was absolutely instrumental in IHRSA's progress as far as being a global trade association, particularly in the Asia region. And I know firsthand when I would travel to speak at the conventions in Japan and China and European congresses over the years, he was always just the most gracious host and very giving of his time. And he knew the people and he could communicate, across a bunch of different languages and make people feel comfortable and at home. As you can tell by the photo, he's also a fellow motorcycle enthusiast like I am. So we had a lot of that in common as well. The last thing that he really, I think, had a major impact on that I was a part of during my tenure at IHRSA was helping us establish the Global Health and Fitness Alliance. And that was a large part of that was due to his ability to bring people together around a common cause. So John is somebody that we're dearly going to miss, and he had an impact on a lot of people in our industry all over the world. So I want to let everybody know that that's happened. Thanks, John. Now, on a more positive note and somewhat in support of what I just shared, there's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. We've talked about that quite a bit on this talk show over time. And one of the things we launched during my tenure at IHRSA that's now come to fruition is a partnership between the IHRSA Foundation and the John W. Brigg Mental Health Foundation. And they've produced this document that you see, which is really a toolkit about supporting mental health and well-being in health clubs specifically. So it outlines research, and not only that IHRSA has done, but also specifically the John W. Brigg Health Foundation. It gives you some tools to work with that are, again, specific to how you as a health and fitness center can launch programs that will affect your communities and support people's mental well-being. So it's for free. You can reach out to IHRSA. It's in the chat, how you can get a hold of it and what to call it and where you can access that information. So this is a great resource. Again, we've talked a lot about mental health and well-being on this show, and we've talked about the need for health clubs to step up and be a part of that. And this gives you the resources to actually make that happen. So thanks again to the IHRSA Foundation, and especially the John W. Brigg Mental Health Foundation and Lynn and Victor Brigg especially. So we'll jump from here to the Super Bowl video. Hopefully most of you saw this. This is Planet Fitness commercial. We're going to play it real quick. And I want you to notice, particularly at the end, the wording that's used in the final message.
People are wondering.
What's happening to Lindsay?
She's never been sharper.
This basketball star married himself in 1996.
Who is Dennis Rodman?
Correct.
Son of a...
She's sleeping better than ever, which the paparazzi aren't thrilled about.
I miss Lindsay!
She's even more productive, trading DUIs for DIY.
The verdict is...
Gorgeous. Maybe it's not what's gotten into Lindsay. It's what Lindsay's gotten into.
Hey, William.
Planet Fitness. Get glowing and feel spectacular.
Feeling Fitacular and Getting the Glow. Those are Planet Fitness's take on IHRSA's Reconnect campaign that I think we promoted to all of you. So they were part of the group that helped develop the Reconnect campaign, as was Mr. McHaney up there and MXM, as was Bill McBride, contributing his chief marketing officer, I should say, as well as many others. So that's one example of how a company, a really big player, Planet, I'm not sure what they paid for that commercial at the Super Bowl, but it was significant. And they're taking that message point about focusing on feeling better, the mental and the emotional benefits, the immediate benefits that you can get from exercise, and not so much on the longer term weight loss and appearance goals. So hope all of you will take heed of that and find a way to use it for yourself as well. So let's now jump in. I've talked long enough. Sara, you want to talk to us about some transformational trends? And I think you prepared another great video for us too.
Yes, we have a great video. really liked about this was it was sent to me by Eddie Tuck, who manages Worx Roundtables, and it's from the Men's Health magazine. So I thought that was really relevant and interesting. I think what's happening, number one, is we're going live, and that's the first thing they talked about. Look for your influencers and your celebrities. Those are your trainers, your coaches, your group fitness instructors. Meditation as wellness, music to your ears. That's that John W. Brick Foundation. The Bricks are actually volunteering their time and doing their keynote at Florida Mania, which is really kind of cool. One thing that Men's Health highlighted was the average age of golfers decreased by 5 years. So that's that come out swinging. So think about that, because you can engage more people in your fitness clubs and your centers by having specific golf programs, and use your trainers and your group fitness instructors. I've talked about this before, but use them as your influencers as well. I think we've got to make sure that we look at getting into nature and getting into outdoors. Keep your outdoors, but also keep that nature thing happening. And try to integrate it and bring it indoors. Try to think about the proper lighting, bringing plants indoors. This tends to help. Sharing will be caring. Again, we're going back to the mental health. We're talking about doing trips, making sure your facility maybe offers outings, which might be fun. Tracking things in wellness. Bill and I chatted about this with the Mayo Clinic, doing those professional and executive check-ins where you get everything tested, from dermatology to gynecology, not for you, Bill, of course, but for every single time. And we're integrating this with hospitals. So if your facility is not affiliated with a hospital yet, get affiliated so you can do some testing stuff. And affirmative action is huge. You got to look at Barry's has a dignity training now. Lululemon has a Center for Social Well-Being. Adidas has an LGBTQ football club. So these are things that you can do to, yes, grow your membership, but also do something better for society. So I really like that. The sleep aspect is enormous. The Whoop ring that people have, this is my wedding ring, but my son has a Whoop ring, and he tracks his sleep so that he knows how he can train. Get some lecturers to come to your facility. Put some articles on sleep into your newsletters. And I liked dress a little more smartly. I think you need to look at your boutiques and your stores in your clubs and offer some of those copper clothes, how they integrate the copper to help with arthritis, or they have things that integrate some of the steel threads. Kind of interesting stuff. And think about natural light. Think if you can take and put more windows in your facilities. People still want that. Masks are being lifted, and Blair's going to talk about this later, but we still want to feel like we're outdoors. So that gives you a lot of stuff to chew on, guys. What are your thoughts?
My first thought is about the age of the golfers coming down 5 years. I was just on a golf trip, and on part of it we stopped at Topgolf. And if you haven't been to a Topgolf, it is a phenomenon to see. Almost no one there knows how to hit a freaking golf ball, it seems like, right? And then there's the people that are really good that come in, and I think they've done a lot to help drive that down and to sort of gamify golf in a way that that I would have never believed. Right.
And the pickleball.
And pickleball.
Yeah. Yeah, we did pickleball. Brent did pickleball a couple months ago, and it's huge. And Lifetime even opened pickleball clubs.
Yep. Opened a huge club here just in Dallas-Fort Worth area just recently. Big pickleball court club. Yeah.
So I think all the athletics.
What the Top Golf is about is, again, back to that same thing. It's an experience, and it doesn't matter your skill level. You're not made to feel uncomfortable. You're welcome. You have confidence in it because you're just hitting it towards whichever circle or target, and your family can do it. Anybody can do it. So you're made to feel secure and confident, and it's an experience. And
it's a lesson in how to run a gym by going to Top Golf.
Yeah, no, it's Brent trained his staff to go to 5-star hotels to learn hospitality. It's the same thing. We've got to go to other businesses that are in the experience delivery areas that are outside of our norm to get those creative juices going.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, on to the next topic. Wellness is important to 79% of the people is the tagline. And the information is just another confirming research study that there's a heightened awareness around wellness in the population. McKinsey and Company did this research, and they surveyed 7,500 people in 6 different countries to come up with these results. So not only did 79% of the people think wellness was important, but further, 48% of the people, almost half of those surveyed, felt like, that wellness was one of their top highest priorities. And another 37% confirmed that their spending habits related to anything around wellness, not just fitness, not just exercise, but nutrition, sleep, exercise tracking devices, all types of products and services is increased by about 37 to 23%, 37% specifically on services and 23% on products. And then as you see in the slide here, their findings suggest that today's consumer views wellness across really 6 different dimensions. And as we all know, there's a lot of differing definitions around wellness. What that means to all of us might be a little bit different. Certainly what it means to the mind of the consumer can be different from person to person, but they've categorized it here pretty well: better health, better fitness, better nutrition, better appearance, better sleep, and better mindfulness. Again, regardless of how you're defining wellness, what it's about is trying to be the best you that you possibly can. And people are so much more aware of that coming out of the pandemic. The thing I see here that, of course, strikes a chord given what I shared earlier was this one around better mindfulness. I'm hearing that word, being mindful, more than I've ever heard it before. And I think that's an outcome of just where people's mindset is, given the pressures that they've had through COVID, regardless of their positions in our industry. I've been with my roundtables, several of them over the last several weeks. And one of the things we did was we used an assessment tool called the Resiliency Map. And they're not a sponsor or anything, and I don't get anything out of it, but it was really a good tool to assess where you are from a stress management standpoint and the coping mechanisms you have and where you're falling a little short. So if you're looking for a tool to maybe give a little bit of feedback, either to yourself or your team around stress and how you manage that, that's a really good tool. Colleagues?
I look at, excuse me, I look at all the wellness stuff, and what I think of is, okay, I get it, this is important. So now how do we bring it into our facilities? And I think we need to think about having a meditation class. I think we should have a sleep program where people can meet and we can get and pull an expert in. I think anywhere we can, through classes, visualization training for our personal trainers, any way we can do that, it's important. And it'll make a difference. Articles, sessions, things like that.
I toured the Hydro Massage headquarters, which is in St. Pete, Florida, just a couple of days ago. And I'm reminded before I speak any further that they haven't launched it yet. So people in the public haven't seen it, but they're going to preview it at the IHRSA convention. But they've got some new products coming out to support exactly what you're talking about, Sara. How you can use it in the club and put it in your recovery space, but it's also about mindfulness and meditation. It's pretty cool.
They've also reduced the noise factor quite a bit on their newer units. It is pretty impressive what they have going on.
Yeah.
Brent, what I like here is the difference. They segment out health from fitness. You don't see that broken out like that very often. Right. And I love that breakout. And the other thing about mindfulness, because when you say mindfulness, I go, what does that mean? Thoughtfulness? No, it means being present. A lot of times we're always thinking about what happened or what's going to happen. And we get trapped in that. And so just being present in the moment that you're dealing with another human being or you're doing something you enjoy, being present in the moment is so critical to what's getting in the way for a lot of people right now. And I just love this depiction. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, I do too. It's a little bit about speaks to multitasking. Everybody wants to multitask because they're time pressured, but it's hard to give your full attention, especially to people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What the funny thing, McKinsey, if you dig in on this a little bit, one of the concerns, the guy that did most of the research on the mindfulness part, he said one of the concerns he has will be sort of the over commercialization of it, meaning non-experts just trying to bring this in for an opportunity to make money on it without really understanding the space very well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's important for anything that we do, is that we, you know, are genuine and authentic in it, that we know what we're doing. I mean, we are certainly, because people use our clubs, we're certainly some part of all of this, right? We certainly have some piece of most all of this, maybe not nutrition, but hopefully so. So I think we're making a contribution now, and I think really trying to understand these, you know, these 6 pieces is going to be a big deal. I know we do work with a very large medical aesthetic practice group. They have about 70 locations now. That better appearance piece right there. Man, your same store sales are up so much. They've never had a dip during the pandemic, and it's growing faster than ever.
So Blair, what you just described, look at the very top of this slide, folks. $1.5 trillion market, not billion, not million, $1 trillion market. That's much bigger than where we operate in a view of fitness centers or health and fitness centers, right? And when Blair talks about, you know, appearance, and when Newtown Athletic Club does well lounge and spas with medical, you know, lasers and injections, and Anytime does waxing, you're talking about people that are looking, you know, we're not in the train business, we're in the transportation business. You know, our industry is much bigger than sometimes we look at. And so understanding that you're a part of something much bigger than health and fitness centers, you're a part of the wellness market. And that's a whole different mindset.
And it's like, thank goodness, some good things come out of the pandemic, and this is one of them, that fitness is being related or transformed into wellness.
Yeah. Sara, why don't you keep hold of the conversation and start your next topic for us?
All right, we got a good video for you guys here. This was, excuse me, this was very inspiring for me. And that's why we did the video. Again, Blair, I think, talked about emotional intelligence and how women have wonderful emotional intelligence. I think you guys do. You do a decent job, okay? And but what was inspiring is actually Bill brought this up when we were discussing this topic about the Los Angeles Rams. I know, I'm giving you a compliment. Don't faint on me. The psychology to win the Super Bowl. And what they did was, it was about positive psychology works. It was an article, the guy's name is Justin Bariso, B-A-R-I-S-O, and he wrote EQ Applied, all about emotional intelligence. And it was an interview that he did with Andrew Whitworth. If you guys remember, he's that 40-year-old, he's the oldest football player in the league. And when he was interviewed about how the Rams won, it was, we were relaxed, we have fun, it's energy, we were energetic, it was positive belief, we knew we could win, we were engaged to be ourselves. And there were 5 rules that they used, which was help first. So if something went wrong, help first. Recognize was number 2, recognize something good that happened. Number 3 was turn criticism into constructive feedback. That means sometimes as leaders, we hesitate to give feedback because we're scared we're gonna, dim somebody's excitement and passion over a project. But we need to generally criticize and then compliment and move on. And if we disagree with our team, and let's say we don't want to do it that way, but the team agrees or the coach tells you to do it this way, you got to commit. That was number 4. And number 5 was reappraise. So if you're feeling like you did something wrong or something went backwards, go back, look back at what you've done right, remotivate yourself. So there were 3 things to get that culture of positivity, of emotional intelligence. 3 things. Create a process, make sure it's habits, and then set the rules. And I love this because, for myself as a CEO and trying to guide through this difficult time of COVID, don't do things when you're tired, make sure you're well fed. I mean, there's so many little rules we apply, but it was cool to see the Los Angeles Rams, succeed.
Yeah, I read that article as well, and it reminded me of Carol Dweck's work in the book Mindset, which is a book everybody should read. It's one that we require reading when we hire somebody. And it talks about it's the power of positive psychology, and it's not what you think it is. In other words, it's not a blue ribbon for everybody. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's one of the things I loved about Carol Dweck. We had her at a Medallia Experience event. And basically it's this notion. You have a child that comes home that got an A on their math, and you can either say to that child, wow, you are brilliant at math, or you say, wow, you must have worked your butt off to get that A. And they say the second comment is what gets people to have much more emotional intelligence as they grow, as opposed to being afraid of failing their whole life. And one of the things that the coach did for the Rams was they didn't have anybody yelling at anybody. It's a strange thing for football, right? They weren't drill instructors. They leaned completely into these Carol Dweck principles. And I really recommend that book, Mindset by Carol Dweck. Awesome practical use for your gyms.
That's a good one. One of the takeaways for me, Sara, was it mentioned, I forget what number it was, about recognition of other people and their performance. And, I know a lot of us do a lot of that around our staffs. And as I was having a conversation with some colleagues earlier this week around recognition, one of the points I just reminded them of that the experts always say is the more you can recognize and coach in the moment, rather than delaying that even a few days or a week. So, don't wait till the end of the month to recognize people that have done something good. Recognize them as soon as possible, and the positive effect and the reinforcement of that behavior is much greater, and the appreciation by the person as well.
They talk about that in the 1-minute manager.
Oh yeah.
That you got to do it right then and there. Yeah, you got to do it right then and there, or they're never going to be able to be coached through it. And one of the things I loved was when they talked about process, habits, and rules. Those habits are important. We can create those habits of high quality, of making sure you smile at all your clients and all the members that come in, and making those habits so that it becomes, a process and a rule.
Great. Okay, Bill, you want to take us to sort of a tangential topic, 5 questions to ask before you make some really important decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a little video for this. to the SCW team. They're responsible for all of our videos and they do a hell of a job. Yeah, so 5 questions. I mean, these are kind of obvious in the sense of, as a good leader, we kind of know these, but sometimes we shortcut them. Sometimes we just kind of get to, oh, I know what to do here. And we don't go through the process or journey. And sometimes that alienates people. Like if you don't get feedback from your stakeholders and you just go ahead and do something, lack of involvement equals lack of commitment. You know, you don't get the same commitment. I don't like the word buy-in. I like people to enroll in what we're trying to do. I don't want to sell them on it. I want them to voluntarily want to do it and enroll in it. So, you know, that piece of it, look at the long-term versus the short-term, you know, lean heavy on realizing that we jump to conclusions quick. We always look for the easy answer. And a lot of times that causes failure. I like, you know, trying to force myself. Is there another way to do this? Is there another way to do this that's not typical? You know, the out of box is what the comment was in the video, but, you know, is there another way to look at this? And have I really got people candid about an idea? You know, I've found that when I don't get candid feedback, sometimes I make some dumb mistakes. And every time I take my idea to a team member, they either kill it for good reason or make it 10 times better. Both are great outcomes. And so that's kind of the video and the article that started this topic. One more thing, 2 more things I want to just leave with before I open up to the panel. Avoid confirmation bias. Most of us look for data and opinions that match our preconceived ideas. And once we get a couple of those, we're absolutely right on this. I've got 3 people that agree with me. I must be right. Well, there might be 43 people that don't agree with you. So be careful of confirmation bias and overconfidence. And then Warren Buffett has a 10-10-10 rule. What will this decision mean in 10 minutes? What will this decision mean in 10 months? And what will this decision mean in 10 years? And so looking at your decision based on, is this just a 10-minute decision, a 10-month decision, or is this a 10-year decision? And giving it the weight it deserves. So Blair, I see you chomping at the bit over there with your eyes lighting up. And I know you got some thoughts on this topic.
Well, you know, you hit on, there's a book called Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath, a great book about decision making. One of the first things they talk about is confirmation bias in that book. Couple other things too. One of the things I came away with, I read that book probably 15 years ago or something. They said, beware when people frame things binary. Well, we can either do this or we can do that. And they say the minute you hear these binary things, both in decision making, on the news, or anywhere, just know there's 1,000 degrees in between that you can do something other than this or that. And that's part of, I think, Bill, what you're saying about thinking more out of the box, right? So just have a heightened awareness of that. Another thing, there's 4 sort of ways to make decisions. I'm going to go in that room over there by myself and I'm going to decide and I'm going to come out and tell everybody what the hell we're going to do. Or we can take a vote. Votes are not good for strategy, not good for business. It's okay for deciding what kind of Christmas party you're going to have. There's also consensus. We're all going to stay on here till we all agree the direction. But the one that most leaders use is called consult and decide. And that's what Bill was describing. But when you consult and decide, make damn sure you're actually consulting and deciding, not manipulating. You've already made your decision, so you're just going through this crap to pretend like you're consulting and then deciding. This has to be genuine inquiry.
Blair, it shouldn't be, oh my God, I got this idea and it's the best idea in the world. You guys are going to love it. I mean, I think we're going to kill it on this. Blair, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Well, fortunately, we all have each other because I don't think we protect each other from confirmation bias in a big way.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't mind telling each other ideas stink.
Yeah.
But it's important to make your team feel like a team and feel like you're willing to listen. And that's one of the hardest things to do. And listening to your frontline workers, you know, the front desk staff, the group fitness instructors, the personal trainers, the people who move your towels around if you're still supplying them, you know, listen to them. And if you make them feel valued, they'll contribute more and more. And shut up and let them talk amongst themselves and figure out some of these issues. That's been the most exciting thing for us, is to be on a Zoom call with our entire staff, and everybody feels like they're going to interrupt each other and contribute.
We've taken we put task force together before. One, we took some kids club staff and we took group fitness staff because we had to change our kids club rules. This was some years ago. So we gave them our constraints. Here's the problems we're having. We have too many employee kids in here. It costs this much money to run the kids club. Here's the hours that we can be open. Here's the budget. Here's our current policy that doesn't seem to work for you guys, that it's impacting the most. Can you guys meet however many times it takes and come back and give us a policy that you think will work? It was so much better than anything we could have come up with.
And you were open. You were open. You told them how much money you were making, how much money you were losing, what it cost, how many workers you had, so they could make an honest decision.
Right. And they could empathize with their own constraints, with the business's constraints.
Yeah. So Blair, I don't know what you mean, remote and in person.
Well,
That's
hell, I didn't know
topic
either. I had to give Mark a reminder from Mark on that, but it's not about work. It's about remote or in-person fitness. And I need you guys' help on, you know how much conflicting information there is out there on this right now? Like, the information, I like, there's this one that just came out from Good Firms, 56.1% prefer at-home fitness. This is a recent survey that Good Firms just did. It just went out on the PR Newswire. By the way, one of the things in that too, Brent, that you were talking about, 85% assert the importance of emotional, mental, and spiritual health to promote overall physical wellness and quality of life. I thought that, so, and then you look at Peloton, right? So how did Peloton be so far off on their forecast? One of the things that a publicly traded company has to be really good at is forecasting. And although they had growth, now I don't know if you remember this, but the first time they took a big hit, they went from projecting 5.4 billion in revenue, this is at the end of Q2, down to 4.4 billion in revenue. Well, that's been now downgraded down to 3.7 to 3.8 billion in revenue. And this is driven from just a slowdown of subscriptions. So, I've got research saying that people prefer at home, and at home is just growing. And then you look at the Baird report on foot traffic going back into gyms, and it's going back up over 100%. Now, maybe some of that's due to closures, right? And people attending, more people attending single gyms. But what are you guys seeing out there? Because I'll tell you, I'll talk about masks in a bit here. We're finally bumping back up over 60% of what we were in 2019 on visits here, even though there's still mask mandates here.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Brent.
No, you go ahead, Bill.
No, I was going to say, I don't want to speak to Peloton particularly because I don't know enough about them and they're publicly traded. It's not my place to kind of get into that. But I go back to what industry are you in? If you're in the technology industry and somebody adopts your new technology, that will be the new way they do it forever on. If you're in the experience industry, then people are going to look for the next best experience. So when I look at all of the remote virtual programming, that filled a need at the time, but it didn't completely substitute for live experiences. And so if I had a new technology about delivering fitness and I went through the mindset of this is going to be adopted in the new way, not keeping in mind the human element of experiences, I might have a different forecast. And again, I'm not picking on Peloton, but just, what industry are you in? Technology or experiences?
Yeah,
Let me share just a couple of things real quick. One of my colleagues from Les Mills was sharing, they did a pretty broad study. I think we referenced parts of it last month, but they said, live is nothing compares to live. People are coming back to live as far as Group X goes. And Sara, you've been saying this for a while, but there is still a place for virtual. Mm-hmm. And one of the things Carter was his name was sharing with me, and I think let me see, make sure I get this quote right. It's the future of blank industry is going to have to be omni-channel. And he said, write any industry in there you want.
And that's absolutely the truth. We're seeing it with our live conferences that we're getting more and more live, but we're recording like almost half of the sessions. And we're getting more and more people are coming to the events, but also more and more people are signing up for the subscription to the recordings. And another thing we're seeing is it depends on the programming. So you've got to look at your research as far as the programming goes. There are cycles in a gym, but some of the active aging sessions, they're not available in the gyms yet. And people crave that. So the active aging sessions, I read a great article that said The active agers for anybody over 55 and over 65, it's kind of still booming virtually. So maybe they don't feel comfortable. And when those mask mandates, which are lifting more and more all over the country, we're going to get that, live is king. They want to go in.
Yeah, and just to fine tune omni-channel, that's basically meeting your customers where they are, making it multi-channel and seamless for your consumer.
Yeah, there's some great comments coming in. I know we need to move on to the next topic, but maybe we can hit on those in the Q&A from some of the people listening on this.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep track of them here, Blair.
Okay.
Help me out.
You got it.
All right. Bill, fitness equity.
Fitness equity, yeah, I could take that. Talk about that a little bit. This was interesting. IHRSA put this out the other day with regard to sharing the research that was gathered from different sources. But what we're looking at here is tens of thousands of clubs have gone out of business. 25% of all clubs have gone out of business since March 2020. 30% of studios are in that mix. That's a big deal. We've lost 1.5 million jobs in our industry since this COVID thing. And Liz Clark and Pam O'Donnell and all our friends over at IHRSA are, they're working hard to get Congress to help us out. And so, because more clubs are going to close, we're not through all this. And so this chart we're looking at now looks at California, in particular with regard to equity. And a lot of clubs for families that are making less than $75,000 a year, which for those of you that are familiar with California is a pretty low number. People are having trouble finding places to exercise, and it's affecting people's well-being. So 43% reported they don't have a place at home to exercise. 26% they don't have a place outside. And when I look at private health clubs that are in affluent areas, we've kind of left it to nonprofits, YMCAs, JCCs, community centers, boys and girls clubs, other avenues to handle areas that are a lot of times underserved by the commercial sector. And so as we focus on this, realizing that this pandemic has also hurt in a large degree socioeconomic households that really need our industry services, and we should really focus on what we can do to be more accessible to everyone, to be more accessible to people of all economic levels and in all communities. And so I just found this really interesting that a lot of clubs struggled and went out of business in some of the markets that were most needed for the community. And so we gotta do more as an industry to serve those communities, and we got to do more with Congress to get funding to support our industry to protect us when these things beyond our control affect us, because it affects the population and it affects the health and well-being of our entire country. Analyst?
One of the things that is a blessing that I think a lot of people overlook when they think about the low cost, the budget clubs, and that is that they really have made it affordable. And if you look at the demographics, when I talked to Chris Ronda, who's the CEO of Planet, and he shares the numbers of their clubs that are in underserved areas and low income areas, it's really impactful that there are fitness options now that almost anyone can afford $10 a month, right? And so they've helped us expand our audience. We're not reaching the masses that we want to, but we've improved the percentage of penetration, the number of people that belong to health clubs to a large degree over the last 5 to 10 years, because these low cost models have really opened up those markets. Not that they're still served at the right level, but at least as an industry, we're making progress.
And it's certainly probably not the at-home fitness is probably not growing in that sector.
No.
Right? It's not affordable. There's space constraints probably. There's a lot of other needs to spend money on. So when you see that, when we talk about this at-home sector, now the difference might be an app and just doing some body weight exercise or something like that. But when you see this growth with all the at-home fitness, even the lower price bikes like Echelon and that, they're still not affordable.
And the difficulty is also plenty of YMCAs have closed now. And this is where a lot of these individuals could afford to exercise. It was convenient, it was very community based, and they're closed for economic reasons. And the rec centers are struggling. but I still feel pretty positive. I think things are going to come back more and more, and not that the fitness equity will ever even out, but we'll have more for the lower socioeconomic groups. As the masks lift, we feel more comfortable going indoors.
Don't you think a huge part of this too is just losing the whole fitness aspect in schools though too? I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, that's where everybody got affected by fitness and got some interest in, or, could potentially get some interest in fitness is through the school system.
I think you're right. And our community groups they've got a lot of focus on kids, and they've got a lot of focus on the older adults. And Blair, I think you hit on something. This is part of the reason that they're struggling.
Yeah, but let's take the school thing a little further. It's not just schools with PE. The intro to fitness for so many kids is sport. And so programming around sports conditioning for those youth in our facilities is an opportunity that a lot of the big clubs do, but even smaller clubs with less space can do sports performance, exercise and fitness programs for those athletes or young athletes. So, it's not only fitness, but the entry to sports, and where do we play a role in sport?
Yeah.
And all the sports were on hold.
And
you couldn't play football, you couldn't play hockey. They didn't want to crowd the locker rooms and spread COVID.
I think that and we can move on here too, but I think one of the big things that schools need to do is focus on fitness. I'm gonna plug my zone here, right? Like that is the way to get everybody thinking about exercise, not just those that are really the athletes, right? That's how it was when I was in high school. If you're athletic, you love PE. If you weren't, you hated it. There's a way to make that sticky for everybody, right? And that's about maybe a different heart rate zones. And so anyway, there's my soapbox on PE. Onward.
Okay, Sara, over to you.
Okay, are you cut out to be a CEO? And we, of course, as usual, we have a beautiful video. Well, I like this. Obviously, it's a little it's a little personal. I have a kind of significant birthday next week. I'm going to be 63, and I'm like, oh my God, people are talking to me, well, you're soon going to be 65. Are you going to retire? What are you going to do? And the first thing I think of is, if you're going to be a CEO and let's say you want to expand and open another facility, because a lot of clubs are closed, this provides a lot of opportunity for individuals that have been managers or been involved in a health club to open their own facility, or for a facility owner to expand. And you've got to look at, are you able to pivot? Like when people talked about the pandemic to me and said, are you able to pivot? I was like, my whole office burned down in 2018 and nobody knew. We had kept it a secret because I thought nobody will come to the event if they think we're out of business, and we burned down. I lost everything, all the computers, the fitness equipment was filthy and smelled like smoke. We had to clean it. It was horrible. You got to be able to pivot. You got to pivot on a dime. You've got to be able, you talk about, is passion a sacrifice? I'm lucky. I have my dream job. That does not happen. Why the heck should I retire? Now, with modern medicine, I'm going to live until I'm 90. So what am I going to do for the next 27 years? And I think about it, when the ride ends, I'm looking, do I have any hobbies? Like I suck at mahjong, okay? I was literally kicked off of the team because I suck, because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to think in my time off. I want to do Wordle. Okay, that's like my new thing. So I look at all this and I think,
What is that? What is Wordle?
Wordle? Oh my gosh, you are so, you know, you're worse than me, Brent. You're like so uninvolved. It's this really cool thing by the New York Times, WORDLE. Do any of you guys do this? Oh my, oh, you're all a bunch of
Well,
losers.
it is. I know what it is, but I don't do it.
It's this 5-word thing. It's really kind of cool. It's something to take your mind off. You know, at the end of the day, when you turn your emails off.
Can I jump in and interrupt you on one point? Sarah?
Yeah.
I'd like to replace the word CEO in that whole clip to leader, to entrepreneurial, I mean, you could be a COO, you could be a director, you could be a manager, you could be a department head, you could be just an individual out there doing your thing. Everything in that thing was about perseverance, personal responsibilities, drive, you know, entrepreneurial traits. So I'd like to change the title to leader or some other word, because I think it's so applicable to all of us. And I'm looking down the list of attendees. We've got at least 2 on the list here that have had their whole clubs burned down, Sarah. This group that's paying attention to our stuff and that we associate ourselves with have been through some adversity through their careers. And I just think that's a great video. But anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No, you're absolutely right. Blair, you were going to say something?
Well, I was going to say you might check and see if there's a common employee between Sarah's office and those other 2 clubs. No, I like that. I like this list a lot. I'll tell you, 2 very inspiring people to me were Amy Pressman and Virgil Hall, the president and CEO at Medallia, a married couple, and and Bill McBride. And I have witnessed their grit and resiliency, and going from, you know, pitching with angel money behind them, pitching Hilton as their first pitch on 9/10, 9/11 hits the next day, they lost every bit of backing, and building that into a publicly traded company, seeing their decision-making process. So we talked about decision-making earlier, their amount of grit, determination is just, it's impressive to see something like that. And we've all gone through it. All of us have been in this business for a long time, going on 40 years for me. And it can be a grind.
But it can be a grind, but it also is so fun. Like, I know Brent Darden felt so sad leaving the CEO position of IHRSA.
Absolutely. Exactly. Well, I will say, to close this topic out, I think it's harder to be a really good transformative leader today than ever before. Right. The employees have more of a say. They're more educated. They're looking for higher purpose. And I think there's just so much adaptation that's having to change with what's going on in the marketplace and with employees and everything. It's never been more challenging than today.
Agreed.
So that's a good segue into the next topic, the employee journey. This comes from some research from Gallup. And this is sort of their overview, if you will, of how to really onboard an employee really, really well. All of us, I think, on the call have dedicated, you know, at least some time to nurturing and giving some attention to how employees are onboarded. We know the importance of that. I think we've probably actually given more credence and analysis of what happens to the customer. I know my good friend Blair there, really encourages people to take the customer journey and map that journey through your facility and through the touch points with your organization, over the phone and online, in person, how they interact once they come to your club. What's that experience? The same concept is what Gallup is suggesting that you do with your onboarding experience with employees, which I thought was fabulous. Think through really how you're touching those employees from the first time they interact with you until they begin working for you, and then all the way through, as you see in this graphic, until they depart your organization. We all know that there's a great challenge trying to find, retain, and keep employees right now. Gallup's recent survey suggests that almost 48% of currently employed people are actively looking for a new job. That's really frightening, given that everyone's struggling to find employees already. And so Gallup suggests during the employee experience, meaning the journey throughout your organization from when they're initially attracted all the way until they depart your organization, that's the employee life cycle, and that there are 7 major stages of that, which I won't read them off. You can see them on the screen here. But I guess in total, we don't have time to get into it in depth, but I just want to reinforce that wow, if we're investing time about the journey that a customer takes, shouldn't we also invest equally as much time, as not more, in what the journey new employees might take with us? And that onboarding that we know is so critical. We know that if we onboard new members into our organizations really well, their retention is going to be greater. And the same is true with employees. So just give that some attention, be creative. There's a lot of best practices out there. But I think Gallup lays it out really well here in this graphic about the different steps along that journey. Bill, I know your organization does some great things, and Blair, I know yours does as well. So maybe y'all might want to jump in on this.
Yeah, so that's one of the fastest growing areas at MXM right now is our employee experience, the employee feedback, employee experience management. One of our larger customers, about 70 locations, they took on employee experience as sort of central to their entire success. Their onboarding has become an entire day, and that first set, what is that a lot? Well, this is only the what I would call cultural onboarding. How do you interpret our values? They have people actually go through exercises using each of their 5 core values, and how do you interpret them and use them in real life? How do you take the core purpose and actually use it and use all of this sort of institutional logic that we have to animate the company? When they started to do that in their onboarding, 100% of their employees have to go through it in each of their regions. And then they started to make sure that once you leave that onboarding and you go into the workplace, that it's still supported in that workplace. And they've worked their butts off to make that happen. Their employee churn reduced so much that it more than offset the minimum wage massive jump that went up by $1.50 to $2 an hour, $1.50 to $2 an hour. The reduction in churn more than offset the increase in wages. So there's some real ROI to paying attention to that employee experience and getting it right.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things here. One is we still, as an industry, I think, hire too quickly, and I think we're doing it now, because there's a little bit higher level of desperation based on finding talent. It's hire slowly, terminate quickly has always been the mantra. There's another saying: is it better to have an employee that you spend a lot of money training and them leave, or to not spend any money training an employee and having them stay? And I think we'd all agree we'd rather have the risk of an employee being trained and leaving than having an untrained employee with us for a long time. So we sometimes underestimate the development piece. And I know a lot of times we underestimate the importance of the hiring piece. Most every position we do at Active Wellness, we require 3 interviews. And there might be some frontline positions and part-time positions where we do 2. But anything involving revenue management or customer experience, we look at 3 interviews at a minimum. And so slowing down a little bit and getting it right is a great graph, Brent. Thanks for sharing this too.
I agree with
Bill,
you, Bill.
I have to say one thing real quick, Sara, just because my buddy Bill opened the door for me. I think maybe the word termination is a little outdated. And Bill, I know, you spend a lot of time in California with your clubs. I thought the new term y'all used was release to the community.
Oh yeah.
When you let somebody go, that's what you
let them experience other opportunities. Exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sara.
Oh, I just thought we always do 3 interviews. We go through for the first with hiring. Do they answer the email? Have they put their information in correctly in Indeed? And then do they answer an email that we send? If they answer the email, then we make a phone call. If they sound decent on the phone call, we have a Zoom call. And that's with our operations director. Then I do a Zoom call and I talk to them. And then someone in their department also does a Zoom call who will be their peer. And we take the peer interview very, very seriously, because that person knows the culture. That person knows our values, and it has really helped for us to find people that stick. And I have a little silver lining. I think as we go more and more live and less virtual, and that you have to have a physical presence in the office, there'll be less churn because physically they have to be somewhere. It's not just only a virtual job.
I think you're right. Yep.
All right. Let's see. Blair, you're wrapping us up with the mask mandate changes.
Yeah, I've tried to really figure out which state, like in Florida, is there anything going on with masks anywhere? Maybe just in healthcare. I was just in Texas. I was in San Antonio for our youngest son's graduation from TACP Special Warfare School at Joint Base San Antonio. It was a nice experience there, right? And there's no mask. You're not wearing masks anywhere you go. From there, I went to Scottsdale. So I've been in Scottsdale playing a little bit of golf, and felt the same thing there. Go in and work out. Went to a couple different customers clubs, and great experience there. And from there on to Vegas, they had gotten rid of their mask mandate, and same thing in the clubs and wherever you're staying. And then I just ended up in Palm Springs. I didn't realize that evidently Palm Springs still has a mask mandate, but it didn't appear to be while I was there. LA, it's part of LA County. I did not know this. Just this morning, LA County has said that they are removing their mask mandate starting this Friday. Evidently, San Francisco is also looking at doing the same. Now, I just saw somebody, Meg Negron just said Cambridge, Massachusetts on 3/14. State of Washington is March 21st. So as we talk about at home, what's that, Bill?
It's all over. I mean, I was down in a coastal town in California this week, and I think it was day before yesterday, they ended their mask in that county. And when you're done with going through that, I've got an interesting thing about staff and masks I want to share, but let me let you.
Oh, I'd like to hear that, right? Because I'm wondering if this is really the last the shoe to drop, let's say, to really understand where our industry is going to be. Like we talk about at home versus in gym, and are people going to come back, and what are classes going to do? I do not feel like I can have an accurate prediction until the mask mandate has been gone, not just because they're uncomfortable wear and people don't smile and there's conflicts and that, but because it sends a different message to the country. I think that's a big part of it, Bill.
Here was the staffing dilemma I was asked about. Okay. I might not want to, just hypothetically, right? I might not want to force all my people to be vaccinated, but I want to encourage them to. And I don't want them to wear a mask if they don't want to wear a mask and if it's not mandated. But now you've got jurisdictions like California that said, okay, you have to give X amount of extra sick leave paid to any staff member that contracts COVID. Okay, so now so the question asked to me by an owner was, I'm thinking about requiring my staff to wear masks to keep them from getting sick because of the burden of the California sick leave situation, right? So you've almost got the operator trying to comply with what's best for the employee, what's best for the business, but also still being regulated on other aspects that maybe cause them to make decisions they don't want to make. Anyway, so there's the requirement, and then there's also people that are going to say, hey, I want my staff in masks because I don't want you to get sick. Because if you're sick, you get to take a week off or 2 weeks off or whatever, paid.
Well,
I don't know.
The laws are going to change, obviously. They're going to adjust. It is interesting. We have a comment from Dennis that says that it needs to be gone for at least 6 to 12 months for the public to truly trust that the virus is gone. With the mask, I'm just going to they'll keep wearing their mask. Trust me, they're not going to wear the masks. Colorado just ended it a couple days ago. No one's wearing a mask. No one's even thinking about it. And it's supposed to be only for people who are vaccinated. Nobody's checking a vaccine card anymore. Yeah. Nobody's wearing a mask. Illinois is lifting February 28th. And that's kind of huge. Lori Lightfoot's we've been very conservative in Illinois. So it's lifting, and I think people are going to go back. And there were jokes last night. I was at dinner with some people, and everybody was throwing their mask in the middle of the table, getting ready to burn them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to comment on your question too about the recovery, right? What's going to happen if this is the last shoe to fall and you're in a state that the mask mandate is still in effect and you haven't had the runtime? But I can't even tell you the number of Rex Roundtable members that I've talked with over the last month that are telling me they've had higher membership sales than at any time in their history. So once your mask mandates are lifted and you've got a little run time and people get more comfortable, they're coming back to the clubs. When you talk to clubs in Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, different places Florida that are open, their numbers are really recovering very, very well.
Yeah. Hearing that from a lot of our customers as well. And that's, I'm obviously really looking forward to it. If nothing else, just get rid of the, the conflicts. One last thing on mask mandates, you may not know this, but the mask mandates on flights are currently set to come off on March 18th. Now, that's the federal mandate for TSA, for airports and flights. I'm going to guess that they changed that. But as it stands this morning, masks on flights come off March 18th.
And we were talking about this, Blair, that 33% of the nurses, they did this huge interview of over 600 nurses, they were asked to work despite having asymptomatic COVID. 33% were required to go to work. 37% said they were exposed, but they were still asked to go back to work. And 90% of the nurses surveyed were vaccinated. So people are getting COVID even though they're vaccinated, but it's far lower. They're not getting hospitalized if they've been vaccinated. And people are just going back to work, man.
Yeah.
Well, I just put it in the chat, the California law, which goes through September 2022. If you have more than 26 employees, 80 hours of paid sick time, all the employee has to do is orally or written wise notify you that they're out sick.
Yeah. Welcome to California.
It's a different country.
Yes, it is. For sure. All right, Mr. California, Mr.
I'm a North Carolina boy that went to Northern Virginia to California to Arizona. So let's get this straight. All right, Brent started us with talking about John Holsinger. John was a good friend of so many of us in the industry, and he did such good stuff. And I was a lot of times I just kept going back to thinking about John. So if I wasn't smiling as much as usual, that was what was kind of ticking in the back of my head. So rest in peace, John. Brent also reminded us of the effectiveness that Planet and others are using with the Reconnect campaign. That resource, that information that IHRSA put together with Brent and others is a valuable resource for us all to use. Sara took us into Transformative Trends, and we touched on, again, the mental wellness aspect. We didn't really talk about it in the show, but the dress smartly I liked. If you want to boost morale, letting your employees wear more athletic leisure wear and less things that look like old school uniforms might be something to consider, even logoed, of course. Bringing the outdoors indoors with natural light, trips and events, focusing on your role in society. Sara spent some time on the whole importance of sleep and sleep tracking. And so there was a lot there in that video and what Sara shared with us. Then Brent took us over to the importance of wellness and talked about the John Brick Foundation with Lynn and Victor Brick, and laid out the better health, fitness, nutrition, appearance, sleep, mindfulness aspects. We talked about the size of this wellness space and how 79% of the people want to be in wellness. And we talked a little bit about being present and being mindful. Then Sara took us back to the mind, how to be emotionally intelligent, how to work in an emotionally intelligent way. And she gave us the Super Bowl example: help people, recognize them, give them constructive feedback, don't beat them down with criticism, commit to the team's goal and the outcome that's going to be moving forward, and then reappraise as you move along. And then she shared with us process, habits, and rules. Have a process, form the habits, and have boundaries. We then went into decision making, There were 5 points there. And one of the things I shared was the Buffett rule of 10, 10, 10. You know, what's the impact? 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years, include others, make sure you're not having confirmation bias, and solicit feedback that's candid. Then we moved over to fitness equity, I believe. No, we didn't. Then we moved over to remote and in person. And so Blair took us through that, and we talked a little bit about experiences, access, a little bit about, in the previous examples, how many members. We've talked in the past about how many members have been members of clubs and doing virtual as well. One of the things that came out of that was the importance of fill in the blank. Omni-channel is going to be the way to go. Multiple channels, seamless for the customer, go to where the customer is. So that's going to require us to keep virtual and other things beyond our four walls. And I talked a little bit about fitness equity and how the impact of the industry's closures have affected neighborhoods and communities that really need our services. And we spent a good amount of time on that. And we gave some highlights to the industries that put together that information, and to IHRSA and other industry associations that are trying to encourage the one-click campaign and letting Congress know that our industry needs help. Sara took us through, are you cut out to be a CEO or an entrepreneur or a leader or a manager, or pick your term there. And she gave us some really good information there about pivoting and about tenacity and about persistence. And do you have what it takes? And that was just a good reminder, I think, for everybody about personal leadership. Then we went into the employee journey. Brent shared that with us. I thought that was a great slide, Brent. We talked about some of the important aspects of that. I would give that slide to everybody that works for you as far as the journey of an employee and what's important. And, so it was from Gallup, Nelson Bailey, the employee journey. And we can make that available, I think, in the notes if we haven't already. Yeah. And, I was thinking about MXM strategy wheel they have, and I was like, you could take MXM strategy wheel and lay that onto that employee journey, and you'd find it matched up pretty nicely, I think. Blair talked about the mask mandates, and we went all over the place about how they seem to be coming off. And I fly a lot, so I hope Blair's right about March 18th with the airlines. The mask may be not mandated, but you'll probably still get questions for quite some time about what you're doing internally from staff and members. And that kind of brings us back to you, Brent.
All right. Well, we've been having questions roll in today, so we'll jump back and try and answer as many of as we can in the next 5 minutes or so. Let's see. Agnes early on asked if we could define a little bit for her the difference between a wellness coach and a life coach. Anybody on the call had an executive or life coach before? Bill? Okay, why don't you answer that, Bill?
I think they're very similar, and a lot of times they are the same person and same roles, but sometimes people are getting life coaching in things that are not necessarily what we would call wellness, such as in career coaching or parenting coaching or other life skills. But usually life coaching and wellness coaching in our environments within active wellness, we consider that the same, if not extremely similar roles.
Yeah, I think I'll just add on to that. There's a great definition, Bill. I think it's also life coaching tends to extend, which of course is also part of wellness, right? That's why they're interchangeable. But I think life coaching sometimes extends to relationships, family, those kind of things, where life coaching, wellness coaching is more centered on activity, sleep, nutrition, hydration, all those things. So it's perhaps a little broader if you talk about a life coach. Blair, the next question is from Michael. You probably saw it, and we were discussing the percentage of people that are preferring to work out at home and so forth. I know you have an opinion about that.
Yeah, I do. That I think, the hybrid model isn't just about using technology. The hybrid model means you're going to work out in different places. It's going to be a hybrid workout. You're going to work out at home and you're going to work out at the gym. I think that people that have gym memberships are the ones that use their home gym equipment. I think the people, it'll be interesting to see if this 51.7%, if it's just the home gym equipment that you have, how sustainable that really is. Like that, been said several times in the comments, people want to go see other people. By God, yes, they do. They want to go see other people. It's why Top Golf is exploding. It's why the casinos are now busier than they've ever been. It's why when you travel, even if you're introverted, and I am introverted, I classify as an introvert on every kind of test you can do, and I'm by myself in a hotel room, I'm still going to go down and eat dinner someplace around people because I still like to be around people and see people. You don't need to talk to me while I'm down there. I don't need to go make a bunch of new friends, but I like to be around people. I think that, it's going to be rare that you have just home gym equipment and make that stick.
And all the virtual training programs that are out there, they've diversified incredibly. Peloton, my friend was talking about, he's got Kendall is his friend. I mean, she teaches Pilates for Peloton, and he talks about Kendall and tells me all about, it was her dad's birthday and blah blah blah, and I'm like, you're nuts. But it's they've diversified, and I think it's because just sticking in one genre is not going to work anymore, because people want to, you're right, Blair, people want to go into a club and exercise with others and be with others.
There's another point there, that this isn't anything new. Our members have been playing tennis, even in our clubs that don't have tennis courts. They've been going on hikes, they've been riding bikes, and a lot of times we just ignore that. I mean, why can't we have a tennis social even if we don't have tennis? Why can't we have a club hike, even though we don't have a trail right behind the club? I mean, so people have been hybriding forever. I mean, that's what people that are active do.
But the thing that people want more of now is, even when I go to a yoga class, it was like, we're all leaving. We don't want to leave. We want to keep talking to each other. So they're actually going to put a bench outside of the club so we can kind of sit and chat. And I think that's an important adjustment facilities need to make. There needs to be more social space.
Yeah. And I think that there was a comment earlier about, about this whole idea that some people are afraid they're going to look dumb. They're afraid of being watched. They're afraid of being looked at. You look at the things that are exploding. I'll go back to Top Golf again. Very few people even know how to swing a club, but they're not embarrassed by it. I think one of the reasons pickleball is exploding is because it probably doesn't take the skill level of tennis, right? Or maybe, I don't know, whatever else. And so I think one of the important things for us in our clubs is just to make sure that we have that type of a feeling where people just, we don't put them in that position of having a feeling awkward. We've got to figure that out, not just go back to what everybody's doing before.
So let's, in the essence of time, let's try another one. Bill, I'm going to hit you with this one first, and that is, the question was, what percentage of people, the question was, what's the average membership cancellation rate for clubs through 2021? I know why we don't have that answer, but I'll let you take it.
I have no idea. It's for wild ass guess would be, pushing 50%. Because a lot of them never came back from 20, but I don't have a stat on that. I know it's higher than the average of 38 to 41% that we normally run, and it's dramatically higher than that. So my gut says it's at least 50%.
And if you're looking at through 2021, for the whole year of 2021, you got to consider what happened there, right? I mean, mask mandates through the first quarter, mask mandates come off. There's a big jump in membership. Mask mandates go back on. There's a huge spike in cancellations, right? So if you're looking, I mean, it really probably needs to be regionalized to really understand that number and try to get some smoothness put into it. It's going to be 2022 is going to be a better story. I hope it's better.
In our roundtable, when we were talking about this, Blair and Brent, your roundtable together, we all threw up our hands on some of these numbers that we couldn't go back and figure out very easily, and said, the hell with it. That's the past. We got to look forward now. So
that's right. So Dimitri, the final question, he's asked, once vaccination, passports, and masks are removed, what's the estimation time for a club to bounce back after their active membership to numbers close to what they had pre-pandemic? Based on my interaction with all the roundtable members, and we've been asking this very question, I would suggest it's probably 3 to 6 months for most of them. That's coming back pretty quickly. You're not getting all your old members back that canceled, but you're getting a crop of new members that are supplanting them in most cases. And the net membership numbers are outgrowing them pretty quickly. All right. Well, we're out of time for today. We're already run over just a couple minutes. Thank everybody for visiting with us today, sharing it with us. And we hope you'll join us again next month. Thanks once again to ABC Fitness Solutions for sponsoring our show. Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.